some of the stuff that you've come up with should be on television right now. Do you remember Funkle?
Funkle. Now that's Fun Uncle. And is this a competition to see who can be the most fun uncle? Or is this the one where you get two different uncles? We've had a few uncle sketches. Is this the one where you get two uncles from different sides of your family and you try and get them to kiss?
That and so much more coming right up on today's episode of The Pod Spotter. You're listening to The Pod Spotter. I'm your host, Zack. There are just a shitload of podcasts out there, guys, like just too many to count. And there are more added every day. And that's why we're here. We are going to weed through the nonsense for you guys. We're going to do the heavy lifting and find you those little diamonds in the rough. Every Monday, we're going to talk to the creators and hosts of those podcasts, and we're going to play clips, and hopefully you find it useful and entertaining, and we all learn something in the process. And if you do, please subscribe to our little podcast and visit us at thepodspotter.com and on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at thepodspotter for extra content and information on upcoming shows. Thanks, y'all. Then, like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's really a pleasure. I've been screening hundreds of podcasts. Well, welcome everybody to In the Think Tank today. It is a podcast where two comedians try to come up with 5 sketch ideas, or 7 if the first 5 aren't good enough. They produce their show weekly from stupid old studios outside of Melbourne, Australia, and have been putting out episodes since 2013. They have a library that boasts over 230 episodes, clocking in at about an hour per episode. You would need 10 full days of consecutive listening to binge all of their shows. With me today, the prolific sketch duo and hosts of Two in the Think Tank, Alasdair Tremblay-Birchall and Andy Matthews. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you?
Hello, Zack. I am very well. How are you?
I'm well. And you just came from recording another podcast, right? So these numbers are all wrong. This is all rubbish. I got to throw this out.
Can we please start again?
This is out of date as we speak.
Yeah.
You just recorded one. You're currently recording one. You guys have more recorded content, I think, than anyone that we've screened thus far for this podcast. 2013, you were...
Well, we should point out that we've also recorded some challenge episodes. So for the 100th episode, we came up with 100 sketch ideas, and that episode went for 11 hours. And for the 200th episode, we came up with 200 sketch ideas, and that went for, I think, close to 17 hours, and was outside the capacity of the hosting platform to be able to upload the podcast.
You broke the system, but they're on.
We did.
They're on. Something's on iTunes. They're on iTunes, and you can watch.
They
some
are
of them
there
on YouTube.
Mm.
Yeah,
we had to contact them and make them make a different, change the way they do things. And
oh my God, you just gamed the system in order to get your 1 hour, 2 hour, 24-hour podcast on iTunes. It's
and people would just say, why can't you just cut them up into 3 episodes? We go, it just goes against the whole point. No. The whole point is endurance, and it's got to be difficult for people.
And
it's got to be hard for us to record and impossible for people to listen to.
And people, it's a bit of a badge of honor too for people. People like to say, I did the whole thing with you guys. I was there for all 24 hours or whatever. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we would say a couple of words during that. We would make up a key word that somebody could tell you at the end of the podcast to let you know that they listened to the whole thing. Or
I want to start with a piece of audio that's probably been passed around internally here at the Pod Spotter more than any other, and it really grabbed our attention earlier, and is a pretty good representation of what you guys do on a daily basis. This is Santa.
What I thought of right at the beginning when you mentioned Santa is, for some reason, I pictured a bunch of billionaires sitting down to a meal on some super yacht. and it's a couple of like, it's like one billionaire who's entertaining, 4 or 5 other billionaires. And they're sitting down to this beautiful meal, and the butler's slicing the meat. And they said, I don't know if you've ever had this before, but this is actually Santa. And
to hunt the most dangerous game of all. Santa. It's just the rarest meat of them all.
The idea of a bunch of billionaires sitting around a yacht, just exploring the most exotic foods, and he bagged Santa for that trip.
That imagery comes because I remember years ago something like that happened with, I think maybe Zuckerberg or one of those people where they were eating roasted koala, apparently.
Oh yeah,
it's just an endangered animal. So that's kind of where some of that
idea that just
imagery
rich people get so bored, they're just like, what else can I put in my mouth? I need. Yeah. We've done it all. I've done it all. I need something new, something imaginary. Yeah. So that's the style. That's the format. It's 2 comedians. Literally, we get to go inside your process. You've recorded the process, and the process is the show in a lot of ways. You guys sitting around in the think tank, and it's the only, like, I was trying to think of, like, is there a TV show where it's just like the writers sitting around the writer room, or like it doesn't seem to be something that exists in any other format, but for podcasts it works really well, and it's so fun to listen to. You guys just sit around. I think it's
a bit of a trope in in comedy circles to, for when people are sitting around riffing or something, they say, this should be the show. This should be what people watch. Yeah. But I think as soon as you take it outside of that room, as soon as you take it outside of the room, I think that dies. And as soon as you try and actually recreate that kind of thing, I think it can't stand up to the kind of the scrutiny or the amount of pressure that comes from being a real TV show or anything like that. But podcasts which have sort of managed to bypass all of that, and they really do just put the listener just there in the room with you, maybe that's the only way that you can sort of get away with it, take all the pressure off, and it's just what it is, just chatting.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and it's fun because it's sort of like the most fun part of the creative process when an idea can be anything and it's not limited by budget or anything like that. And so you can really throw your craziest ideas out there, and you can entertain the possibility of this being made, but the reality of it being made will often be much more restrictive. So
I could only like
in your mind is probably better.
It's not even.
I could only liken it to like the from an actor's standpoint, the rehearsal process in so many ways is often more fun than actually doing the show. The pressure of doing the show is not as exciting as being in that room, generating ideas and coming up with things where, if I do this, then you get to do that. And there's no pressure to like look a certain way or do a certain thing. It's very free and liberating. And that's what we hear when we listen to this podcast. It's just free association. And it's fun for us when you guys arrive at these ideas and you take the time to arrive at these ideas and you're in just this sort of free associative place. But does that ever get you in trouble? Has that ever gotten you like, when you operate at that place all the time, certainly you're saying things like, you're talking about testicular warfare and R-rated Dick Van Dyke and just weird things like Badger tie clip.
Badger dick tie clip.
What are some of the sketch ideas? Badger dick tie clip. Talk about operating in that space.
I will say that I think in some of the early episodes, I said some things that I would absolutely probably not say now. So I've definitely said some things that I feel very uncomfortable about, but I also feel, and I hope, there's a lot of context out there now that if somebody did want to listen to every single episode, and I'm not suggesting that would be a good idea for anybody for their personal or mental well-being, but I think that you would see us, and certainly me, grow and become a better person. So I think I'm happy to leave the things that I said early on there as an example of, he's come a long way. And that's an example to other stupid white men.
And I have this fantasy that I would be really good at apologizing for things that I've said in the past, and so I think I'm excited by the idea of getting in trouble for something, and then I could be really good at apologizing. I could say, heartfelt, like I'm just so sorry, I've changed and I've learned and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. You were early adopters of this format, and your origin story reads like an Australian tall tale. What, Andy? You built something with your hands, and you guys.
Do they not do that in America?
No. There's no building studios, and it looks like you built the studio, and you invited Andy in, or Al in, and you guys are just kind of like.
Well, I sort of I tend to that's one way that I can push things forwards. It is a kind of, you build it and they will come. But we wanted to build a studio for filming sketches and doing this kind of thing. And I was only really, in my early days of friendship with Alasdair, but I knew that I wanted to be better friends with him. And so I went ahead and rented this studio with another friend, and then told Al, you need to move in to make this financially viable. So we built little rooms inside this huge warehouse, and we lived in those and had a studio out the back, and then built a little loft where we had our first podcast studio. And I would be up in the ceiling cavity, crawling around in the asbestos dust and screwing in things and blacking out the light, the limited amount of natural light that did actually come in. I had to block all that out because that was interfering with the cameras. So we lived in this sort of old ice factory down the end of an alleyway. And on the first night we were staying in there in our little boxes on the concrete floor. There was a stabbing on our front doorstep, and the police came and arrested people. But it got better from there. And there were very few stabbings after that.
The think tank was born out of failure, right? I mean, it was born out of not just the stabbing, but you both applied for a writing competition or something like that. You met at
we met at a call out for like a community radio show, where they were calling out for comedy writers, but neither of us were comedy writers, but we kind of wanted to be. And then we met there, but then we were the show kind of ended up dying pretty quickly, but we were, I think, the only two people who felt sane enough to hang out with.
Nice.
And then it started like that a little bit. And then, we moved in together, and then we were like, okay, we want to make stuff, but then we didn't really make stuff for a while. And then we were like, okay, well, if we do a podcast that we don't have to edit at all, then the barriers to creation will be out of the way. All we got to do is record and then upload. And we can, I can watch you do that and force you to do that like that, and that's how we kind of, made it happen.
I'm so interested in chemistry and how people find that they have chemistry. And like, I guess I'm curious, like, was there an early joke, or how did you know you were like-minded individuals and that this would be a compatible thing? People spend millions trying to get two people that are compatible in a room together. And I guess I'm just like, yours is so darn good that it's the reason, I think a huge reason why people show up is just to hear your banter.
That's very nice. Thank you. But it's a weird one. I don't know. I think with that first meeting where we had to read things out, or there was the opportunity to read things out at this kind of call out for this radio show. I think maybe Andy was the only person who did read something out. I can't remember. But he had read
It was specs for his warehouse clubhouse.
Yeah,
it was
clubhouse
blueprints
idea,
for
He had a lease. He had a lease for this warehouse that he was like, anybody willing? He came across quite desperate. And I liked that.
I read a Bush poem.
Yeah.
I'd written like a comedy Bush poem, which I don't think today would be very funny, but and I'm sure Alasdair had written something, because otherwise I wouldn't have been confident that you were not a lunatic like everybody else who was there.
Okay.
Right.
Maybe, yeah.
I think you must have had something. There was a guy there, remember, who he had a bunch of sketch ideas, but every single one of them seemed to have something to do with Jennifer Love Hewitt's boobs. He had 4 or 5 sketch ideas, and then the boobs would come in towards the end of the sketch. There was no.
It always got back to Jennifer Love Hewitt. Everything just kind of returned to it.
Yeah, and I think it still wasn't topical then. Like it wasn't topical even then. It was just.
You got to catch up with that guy. You got to have him, but you have to have him as a guest. See if he's see where he is in his Jennifer Love Hewitt.
I think he'd be pretty hard to track down.
I think there's an element of maybe our chemistry, and I'm not sure, but I think there is a strange thing where we can give each other shit.
Yeah,
but
you rarely. It's always good natured shit. It never feels like it's always positive, constructive shit when we hear it. It's like, that's not. Like here, let's give an example of some positive shit that you give each other here. This is let's hear your thoughts on 2 points.
But we are equidistant from each other because egalitarianism is very important to us.
Thank you.
Isn't that interesting? How every 2 points are always equidistant from each other.
Alasdair, you know what you've got there? That's either the most interesting thing that anybody's ever said or the stupidest comment that's ever been made.
Which is really, when I'm listening to your pod, it's like, that sums up beautifully how I feel about it. It's like, and what am I doing? This is the dumbest thing. And then all of a sudden, some little nugget will arrive. That's the most brilliant thing I'd ever heard. And that happens generally every 10 or 11 minutes listening to you guys just ramble. It's a beautiful thing. But that is a good example of the good-natured ribbing that goes on at 2 in the think tank.
I think it's sort of what you want in a friendship, right? Like it shows that you're just as open as you can be to each other. And they know how stupid and how flawed you can be. And it's fine. Like every time somebody makes fun of that thing about you and then continues to want to be your friend, then you know that thing isn't so bad, at least in this context.
Yeah.
It's the dream.
I know, Al, you at one point were like, I am nervous when I think about people hypothetically, like not specific people. Specific people don't make you nervous, but the hypothetical idea of a person listening to me at times will make me nervous. And it's just a very funny concept that it's if you think about it too much, you won't be able to say or do or operate at the level that you guys do.
Yeah. There's
not a question in there.
But there is but yeah. It very much is like, I mean, we do go in to just go say the dumbest things possible. So we've set the bar very low in that regard by just going like, look, let's go in here, say some dumb thing about a guy riding a pig through town, right? And know that that's what we consider content, right? Yeah. And so by setting the bar that high, or or just going like, all right, what's the opposite of a helicopter? And that so that you there's no expectation on what talking should be, and so therefore anything is talking, and a good starting point from which you could find something that might be interesting or funny. Yeah,
I'm interested in the guy riding the pig through town. I want to know where he's going. Is he going to the abattoir? Is he I think save it for he's taking the pig to the abattoir, and he's riding the pig to the abattoir, and then he has the pig butchered at the abattoir. But in order
then he rides the meat away.
Well, he constructs a bacon bicycle.
So, if we were in 200 years from now, we were in a podcast museum, and the think tank were there. Undoubtedly, the think tank, a kiosk would be there.
Sure, and a whole wing. I like to think
probably a wing. And you walk up to the think tank kiosk or display, and there are your pictures, and there's a red button there that you press, and it would let out some piece of recorded content from the think tank, or a moment, or a piece of improvised music. Would you have hopes of what that would sound like, or be a joke, anything?
I've got a strong feeling of what it actually will be, and this is the tragedy of 2 in the think tank, is that our best sketch ideas happen in probably the first 2 or 3 episodes. And all the people who are big fans of the show, whenever they're like, I'll tell you what sketch I really like, where you can always be like, is it Ludwig? is it Ludwig van Beethoven? That's where and these are the dumbest ones. They're all pun based. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is it that's where Lutz wig van? Beethoven had a mobile wig van. Or is it Under a Restaurant from maybe the second episode where there's somebody builds a restaurant called Under a Restaurant underneath a police station.
Sure.
And this goes on and on and on, explaining how it came to be called Under a Restaurant. Those are the sketches that people like. Not any of the, literally over 1,000 sketches we've done since then. No, it's the first 2 or 3, and then it's just been grind since then.
Maybe that's because people are like, oh, you have a podcast? I'll check it out. And then they do their due diligence and they download the very first little baby idea that you ever had. And that's forever what you're known for. A van that sells wigs. And I think you guys actually sang a little ditty in that, a pretty good song, Ode to Joy.
Ode to Joy.
There's nothing funnier to me than when, you guys, than grown men taking ridiculousness very seriously, and that's where you always sort of arrive, whether you're debating where a third arm should grow out of a human, or any of your idea, or something like going to war, but just by putting your balls on the objects and effects of the other country. It's a very serious tactile approach to your sketches. It's logic forward, and so that idea of like logic of the absurd is sort of your bread and butter. Which let's see how that let's see how going to war with your balls, how that could actually work in reality.
I think the saying is that deconstructing comedy is like was it dissecting a frog or something, that the frog dies and it's not very interesting, but and while we are sort of dissecting comedy, it's almost like we're trying to build the frog from the ground up, like Frankenstein a frog. So it's okay because you're not watching it being killed, you're watching it come to life. And so hopefully that means we get around it, because we do, if discussing how a joke works is bad, then we have done multiple very, very bad things over a long period of time. So I'm just trying to justify it to myself.
But also you go into every one of them with the idea that we have to be able to produce this. We have to be able to do this. This has to be a fully fledged thought, a fully fledged idea. But how many of the 2,800 sketch ideas have actually gone through full production? I know you've produced your Magma series, which is tell us about Magma, and tell us about, I guess, how many of the 2,800 have seen the light of day.
Sure. Well, Magma was us as 2 engineers, and we've come up with this idea for creating a new industry of mining magma. So you would go and extract magma out of the ground and then make islands, and then you would use engineering to solve problems in the world so that there would be less problems on this island, and that would lure people to this island, and you could sell it as real estate and stuff. But we did use sketch ideas in there as like the details to color this kind of show. That was a live show we did at the comedy festival.
Like the idea that we need to turn the number 5 upside down, because at the moment it's got a curved base, so 5 would fall over. Really, 5 should go up the other way so that it rests on that flat bit. That's just good engineering.
Sound. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
And then we did also use this idea of 2 partners, like one partner sort of saying, I want to share all of myself with you, and that they had collected all their dead skin cells and hair and nails and teeth that they'd shed throughout their lives, and then kept them in big plastic containers so that they could, after the wedding night, reveal it to their husband and say, husband or wife, and say, look, you're loving me, but now you're loving all of me. And then all
of it.
Yeah.
Has a family member ever been, has anyone, a loved one, a parent, ever heard one of these thoughts, one of these sketch ideas, and just been, I was listening, and, competitive lactating is just that. Where did we go wrong with you? What did? What happened?
My
What?
parents did listen really early on. They listened to the first few episodes, and then I think there was one crucial moment where they did stop listening. And after that, I think they said to me, "That one was a bit weird, wasn't it?" And then they haven't mentioned it again since. It's been several hundred episodes.
It's just moments, just little moments here and there.
Yeah.
Nothing
Yeah.
big. No one had to sit you down and say, listen, we have to talk. Something's wrong with you, and you can't.
I had a friend who played it. She says she worked for a pottery company, and they would play podcasts out loud, and everybody would listen to them together. And she was like, "Oh, I've enjoyed listening to Two in the Think Tank." And then she put it on over the thing, and I think very, very early on we started talking about how TITTT, the Two in the Think Tank, is like a long tit. And we were like starting to talk about very long boobs, I think, and the idea of I don't know. Look. She said very early on, she was like, "Actually, let's not play this to everybody." And then she went and turned it off.
Speaking of long tits, so that's the name of your fan. Well, there's a schism here. There's a great divide. Is it long tits or is it twankers for your fan base? The idea, when a fan base is named, that's the sort of calling card of a successful podcast. You have a bit of a civil war for your think tankers, twankers or long titters. Let's settle it right here once and for all. Who do you recognize as your fan base?
I think because I came up with long tit, I feel ashamed.
That's the number one rule. You can't. I mean, I've been trying to call pod people, listeners of the Pod Spot or pod people. You can't come up with it. It has to happen organically. I got to stop pushing my agenda.
So I'm pretty sure we didn't come up with twankers.
Yeah. So that might be it. Twankers.
So
what is twankers?
I quite like twankers. I think twankers has got something.
Have you ever been watching something and been like, did they steal that from us? Did they take that? I think we said that in 2014. I came up with that idea. When you're generating as much, thought as you guys are, there exists this, as I said, 2,800 idea library that is just at anyone's disposal to just go and generate thoughts for themselves. And
there has been one that was brought to our attention, which is the big one, which is on Conan. They did a sketch about international waters and about how you could, if you go out into the sea and you bottle in water from international waters, and then you come back onto land and you stand in that, then you can break any law that you want. And that is an idea that we came up with on the show.
Wow.
And they hit very similar beats that we hit. I mean, I think that people could come up with it independently anyway, but the idea that you would sort of pour the water into a kiddie pool and then stand in that kiddie pool
so
anywhere you want to
specific.
commit a crime. Yeah.
But I think it's so likely as well that it's just parallel thinking, because there are so much comedy now. There's so many people trying all over the internet. No one on Twitter can ever accuse anybody of stealing their joke, really, unless they've copied and pasted it, because just everybody's trying all the time.
Yeah.
Any topic, we're all giving it a go. And there are certain topics that are just ripe for comedy,
Well, an idea like that too, it's sort of similar to the birth of electricity, how all of these scientists were really close at the same time. And Tesla or Edison, who I'm not really sure, it's very similar to international waters.
Yeah, we came up with the idea for electricity on our podcast, actually. So,
Is that right?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's
Why did you have so much trouble with your sound then early on? It feels like you would be better with sort of electronics in general.
Again, we come up with the ideas. We don't necessarily implement them.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Well, I'd love to play a game here with you guys that is part of our show. And I have a little feature here I like to call How Well Do You Know Your Baby? Where I ask a series of questions about your baby, about your pod, about Two in the Think Tank, to see how well you remember some of these sketch ideas that you sort of just throw out randomly. Is there much recall for you? Do you go back? Or is it usually just when people bring something up to you?
If we're writing stuff, I tend to go back and re-listen to a lot because, sometimes there's sort of half-formed ideas that I can just take straight up and then write them out. And then we do have some listeners who are almost considered the scholars, and you can go to them. You can go to them and like you go, because like somebody will ask us a question on Twitter and we go, I'm sorry, we forget most of the stuff that we say as soon as we stop talking. And then there'll be a few people who'll discuss who are like, I believe that is in the 100th episode around whilst, this particular guest was around and things like that. Yeah.
Well, let's see if the two in the think tank scholars can answer some of these correctly, and we'll see which ones you guys can get here. 3 questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
Just get 2 out of the 3 correct. And right behind me here, we're going to feature on this beautiful bookshelf some 2 in the think tank swag in perpetuity. Whoa. It'll be up there forever if you get these right. So you are playing for something. Pretty high stakes on this.
Cool. This is great. Yeah.
Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How well do you know your baby? Question number 1. I'm going to read a list of sketch ideas from your sketch library from the canon. And we'll see, can you identify which one is fake? Okay, so here's a list. One of them is fake.
Okay.
Number 1, I'll just read the list. You tell me which one is fake. Cheese morning. Pollen entrapment. Cat prison. Prison puppets. Premium fire brigade. I'll read them again.
Okay, Premium Fire Brigade is absolutely correct. They will come to your house and they will put out your fire with Perrier water.
That's right, with sponge.
What was this? Oh man,
pollen entrapment.
I forgot. Pollen entrapment. That's one where creatures have evolved to look like humans that you think you recognize. So you go up and shake their hand, and then the plants, they put pollen on the back of your hand to help pollinate other plants. Now you really, I'm having a lot of trouble with some of these other ones. Cheese morning. That does sound like something we would talk about.
Cheese morning.
Yes, I think it's where you make a sculpture of your dead beloved out of cheese, so that you can cuddle them in bed and then also maybe eat them. So it's even better than your beloved was. So you would move on more quickly. Or am I just making this up? And then
really,
cat.
Yep, go ahead.
Cat prison. Was cat prison?
Sorry, it's cat prism and prison puppets.
Okay, so cat prism. No, it was rat prism.
Wow.
Because you shoot a rat through a prism and you split the rat into its component qualities like cunning and being hairy and small. Having a yucky tail, and then you can project those onto other things, and they will be imbued with it. So the last remaining one, prison puppets, I think is a thing. So I'm saying cat prison is fake. It's rat prison.
Al, do you concur?
Yeah, I concur. Because
Go ahead.
No, it's just we've been thinking about rat prism recently because we're currently writing something about mutant passing beams of light through a prism, and we're like, light isn't the only. Wow, what if there was other things you could pass through prisms?
I pick the one. I try to go for the deep fake on the one sketch revisited. That is
and you
exactly
only changed one letter.
Just one letter. I thought I had you. That was amazing. That is from all. I really pulled a cross section from all 240 episodes, and
incredible.
And you were able to relive all of them. And meanwhile, Al, aren't you the one writing them down, jotting them down too?
Jotting them down. Therefore, they don't go into the memory. I'm using some external memory, and then this thing just forgets it straight away.
Too good. I had to change up prison puppets there because I'd mentioned competitive lactating earlier, but competitive lactating was also one that I had in this earlier because I really wanted to play a bit from competitive lactating. Let's hear for a moment from you guys discussing competitive lactation.
What would happen if we were all lactating a bit all the time? Would it be a thing where like bros would go to the gym and really work on lactating a lot, and then would lactating, like just producing huge quantities of milk, would that be an Olympic kind of event? Your ability to just to fill glass after glass after glass. Would we all be sitting there like applauding the lactation world's Ian Thorpe, as he somehow out of nowhere pulled another pint and a half at the last second there to beat, I don't know, Peter Van Hoogenband in the 4x100.
I love that this life-sustaining thing in women is respected as this beautiful thing, the conversation between a baby and a woman. But the minute you give it to men, we would just make it a dumb sport. How much milk you make? How much milk you make today, bro?
How much you milking?
Yeah.
Did we go on in that? I wanted to discuss the idea because I think this is a good idea. A form of swimming where before you can do the swimming, you have to fill the pool. Everyone has their own pool, but you've got to fill the pool with your own bodily liquids before you can then dive in and continue swimming.
Poop, piss, shit. I think breast milk.
Yeah.
What are the main? Blood,
tears,
saliva,
sweat, saliva. Yeah.
Tears.
And how much? Is there a time limit, or is it's a timed event? Do we think?
No, I think that's really a good point. I think no. I think it's open-ended, and so that you'll be drinking, pissing, whatever into that pool, bleeding, yeah. And as much as you can over as many days as it takes to fill, it's just a 25-meter pool, and just a lap pool.
Someone who is in this sport would be called a sequestrian. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's secretors.
Very good.
There would be there would be people known not only for secretion, but they would have the other component would be the runner of secretion liquids, like someone that's known for being the fastest at bringing you materials for your secretion.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a team. It's definitely
it's
about your support team as much as anything.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You would have to thank a lot of people. Well, I couldn't have done this alone. I couldn't have got all these glasses of water and I suppose sort of fluids for stimulating blood production.
Everyone always goes right to water, but it's really, if you can get the blood flow, if you can keep your red blood cells popping, you're gonna get there fast. You're gonna get there quick.
I think that's a fool's errand. No, I don't.
Sequestrians.
I think it's a sketch. I think it's a sketch.
That's all the first question, guys. You got number one correct.
Oh, great.
I'm going to move on to number two, although based on how well you did with the first question, we're definitely just going to put something up here. You've won this game as far as I'm concerned. Question number two, I'm going to read you a sketch title, and we're going to see if you can remember it, but based on how well you did the first one, I'm not too confident. You're going to get stumped here. Can you remember what the sketch Nativity is about?
Nativity. Oh my God.
Do you think it would involve Jesus? Wait, it would involve Jesus?
Feels like it would, but...
Jeans? Would he be wearing jeans?
I wonder if it's something to do with the first... Oh my gosh, I have absolutely no idea. See, so Alasdair writes the sketches down, but then I name them.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And in my attempts to do some kind of feeble pun or joke or something, I very often lose the meaning of the sketch entirely.
A baby being born in double denim? I don't know, like it's a...
Is it a water... Oh, no. I know what it is. I know what it is. It is Jesus' birth, and is it the waters break into the manger?
Let's see if that's correct. Let's listen to you guys discussing Nativity.
You can't plausibly get planes close enough together. Yeah, I'm just trying to picture how you, as a plane representing the Virgin Mary, cuddle a plane representing baby Jesus, or an ultralight representing baby Jesus, without killing baby Jesus.
That's true. Yeah, I guess you would need a number of helicopters, one to play a donkey, one to play a sort of a creche.
Right. So they're not cradling baby Jesus, but maybe they are sort of airlifting baby Jesus, who's represented by a tank.
Maybe they could be refueling baby Jesus.
You're fueling baby Jesus broke me. God, when I heard that the first time. So good.
I have no memory of that whatsoever. And I gotta say, I still don't know what it was about.
Is it like one of those sort of like, you know, like
it's
a
like the
war
Blue
game?
Angels. I mentioned the Blue Angels.
Yeah.
But dressed up, adorned
but
with
doing
sort
the
of
nativity scene.
Yeah. Exactly. Question 2. There it was. Nativity. So good. Guys, your final question for games, even though again I stated you've already won the game. Not a question so much as a task. I wanted to see if I could rewire the engineering of the think tank to come up with, you know, we're a podcast about podcasts. Maybe we give back to the podcast community and come up with, try to generate 3 podcast ideas by using the resources of the think tank. And I'll actually give us one and say that sequestrians is that could be that could be a pod. I think that we sort of brainstormed one already, and so if we can come up with 2 other podcast ideas,
This is the first thing that that comes to my mind. Is I think this could in fact be an entire podcast app, right? So what it is it plays your regular podcasts through your headphones, but it now splits them into the left and right channels. Okay, and now into one ear you have the podcast coming into one ear, but then into the other ear you have, I don't know, I guess sounds of people nodding or agreeing and sort of laughing along, but they sound more like they're in the room with you. So it makes the podcast less of a solitary experience. It feels like you're listening to the podcast with a group of other people, even though you're still desperately alone.
Wow. Left brain, right brain.
Yeah.
We'll call it.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. I did think of a podcast idea that could be, let's make a sentence. Right. And so I guess we just come into it and we go, hi everybody, we're going to come up with a sentence, and then we start
a totally new one, one that hasn't ever been.
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be good to come up with a new one, but you know, I guess there's nothing wrong with coming up with one that, you know, has already been done, but as long as you did the work to come up with it, you know, the meaning could be different in this new context, but you know, you kind of go, what do you think would be a good first word? And then you can have a little discussion. You go, well, you know, I like the word apple. I like eating apples. And I feel like if I heard apple at the beginning, although that would be a weird thing to start a sentence with.
That'd be an incredible thing to start a sentence with.
You know?
I mean, nobody is out there starting sentences with singular nouns. That just doesn't happen.
Nope.
I know, but that's what, you know, but think about, you'd be intrigued. You'd feel there'd be a feeling of warmth, the reminder of eating apples. You know,
and then where do you go from just apple?
You're in a good place to accept the rest of the sentence. Now, you see that question. This is the audience playing along. This is them going, where are they going to go from here? Oh my God. Well, what kind of sentence are you going to write that starts with apple? You see, it's an
interactive pod. There aren't too many of those in
the
iTunes library.
Pods.
Yeah. There's not a lot of live pods. Sort of hard to do. Not as much fun to listen to, you know, years later.
No, you're right. But I think, you know, even if they're just playing the game in their mind, just wondering, you know,
okay,
they're going, oh, I wonder what sentence I would write that starts with apple.
I think I'll write down apple sentence generator.
Well, look, but I apologize.
I don't know that it's going to be produced next week.
Oh, now I know what it feels like to be the guy who doesn't write down the
That'd be a horrible addition to your podcast. I just say no to everything. No. It's so collaborative when you listen to the think tank. It's always helping each other generate ideas. Yes, anding and no. Next.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
Try again.
Okay, let's take a quick break here. We'll be right back. Guys, we are here to fill the role of finding great content for you, wonderful podcasts. We are podcast liaisons for you, bringing you the quality pods that you aren't listening to. So if you like the show, please check us out and subscribe. Visit thepodspotter.com and on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at thepodspotter for lots of good stuff. And please leave a review, a favorable review. My ego is fragile, so if it's not good, I'm probably just going to delete it. So also subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, and spread the word if you like what you're listening to. Every Monday, we're going to release a new episode, a review of a great new pod, and we're just going to keep plowing ahead. So please do keep listening. And if you have any suggestions for future pods, please email us at thepodspotter.com, and we will give those a listen. And if you have been changed or moved or inspired or entertained by any of the pods we have recommended, please also let us know, because we like to know that we're doing a good job. Thanks, everybody. You know, when I watch TV and I'm just like we have a show on Fox right now that's like, they're just smashing Legos. You know, they're just like, they make a Lego statue and then they smash it. And I'm just like, why don't writers just go and just buy the think tank? Here's I'm going to write a check. Here's the think tank. I want, let me have those ideas, because some of the stuff that you've come up with should be on television right now. Do you remember Funkle?
Funkle. Now that's Fun Uncle. And is this a competition to see who can be the most fun uncle? Or is this the one where you get two different uncles? We've had a few uncle sketches. Is this the one where you get two uncles from different sides of your family and you try and get them to kiss? or is this the one where you actually have to decide? It's a game show, and I think you actually have to decide which uncle you don't want to have anymore, and literally they're not allowed to be in your family.
That's dark. This was the one I was thinking of. Was let's play it. Actually, let's listen to Funkle.
What if you spend time with two uncles?
Wow.
And then you have to, at the end, it's kind of like a dating show.
You have to pick.
But at the end, you have to pick which is the best uncle, or which is the uncle that you'd like to, like, you have to disown one at the end, or
it's just you have to pick which uncle you'd like to spend a bit more time with.
Yeah, but the one has to definitely like be rejected in a big way, I think, for there to be stakes.
I suppose, but I quite like the idea.
It could just be which is the better uncle.
Which is the better uncle, I think is good.
So it's like The Bachelorette meets who do you think you are meets the dating game.
But with uncles.
Yes.
Wow. There it is. The Funkle competition. I love that. As a fun uncle, I just want to be on that show. I want to get in there.
I think that what we didn't mention at the start when we were talking about like the joy of doing things just as hypotheticals in the podcast, just coming up with the ideas. Yes, we don't have to worry about the potential budget, but we also don't really have to worry about the limitations of our ability as writers.
Yeah.
You can imagine having a big budget. You can also imagine being a good enough writer to pull this off. And I think we rely on that a fair bit as well.
Yeah.
God, imagine.
If you had to expand
if talent wasn't an obstacle.
Yeah. Well, I think you guys are damn talented, and I love listening to the pod.
That's what I wanted to hear. Yes.
That's very nice.
Got it.
And old ideas are kind of still developing. Like there's a bunch of things that are old ideas that I've kind of started writing up as like potential TV shows, and they're always kind of floating around. I think the ones that kind of stick with you or come back and still seem strong a few years later, you go, well, that's got to be a strong idea. And when we did, at one point we did make a sketch show that was called Sci-Fi Sketch Experience, and we did just mine a bunch of sketch ideas for that. And that was a live show. And that was really fun because there's so much material that we can work with, and we can just really pick the stuff that, we really love. Is
there much research and development that goes into, I know that Andy, sometimes you'll just have an idea that or Al, you'll have written maybe a word down. I know you generate ideas from your fans. Your fans will submit 3 ideas, but what sort of life research and development goes into, are you just naturally curious people, I guess, or because you guys are really smart when you're talking about, seemingly sophomoric things and blue humor. You have a very, as I said before, sort of tactical approach to it. What sort of research and development is there for something like this?
I think we're both just naturally curious. I think we both have a little slightly sciencey, engineering-y background, and so we do like talking about things that sound like, that sound smart, kind of, quantum-y, spacey kind of stuff like that. And I think it's just what you're feeling is that you haven't heard that many people talk about those kinds of things in such a stupid way. And so it's kind of, it's just that mixture of like, just dumb and smart sounding blending together. And
but it's an old comedy trick, right? Is to talk about something stupid in a smart way or something smart in a stupid way. And like as comedians, so often the time, you comedians get up on stage and speak with such authority about big topics or like complicated issues, and then they pull in references to this and that, but they don't actually understand any of the shit they're talking about. They've read the same headlines that you have. Right. They've just got the balls to drop in some words like Aristophanes and trickle down economics. Sure. And they, when you're the only one with a microphone and nobody's allowed to ask questions, you can get away with saying all sorts of shit, and people just like, well, I assume he knows what that word means.
Sure.
But if nobody's asking you, well, you get away with it. And that's what we are doing a lot of the time. We've got just enough knowledge to get to the end of the sentence, and that's all we need.
Here's another example of that very scientific sort of tactile approach to absurdity. Here is a historical doc about shit.
So, what about this? It's a historical documentary about, and I'm sorry everyone, but it's about a shit on the floor of a public toilet, right? And I don't know how long it's been there. Maybe ages, maybe not all that long at all. But, I mean, we probably have the same questions about that shit that we do about the heads on Easter Island. Who put this here? Why here?
Why here? Why did they carry it here
when?
From there, which is where the toilet is?
Yeah, exactly. Why not over there? It clearly belongs over there, and yet it's here.
That is Andy and Al with their historical doc about
I'm really sorry about that one. My God.
That's just a taste of what you're going to get, guys, when you tune in to Andy and Al. But it's always you follow the logic to its natural conclusion. And it sounds absurd, but then one of the #1 television shows on Netflix 2 years ago was American Vandal. And that is basically a historical doc about shit, only it's a mockumentary about someone drawing penises on a car. And so it's easy to dismiss some of these ideas as nonsense, but that was back in 2015 or something that you're saying this idea, and we've seen this show, we've seen iterations of this show on TV. And so I just think that it's such an amazing resource for anyone that it's changed it. Actually, like just having you two bounce around my brain has like kind of changed the way that I've been thinking about things in a not healthy way.
Oh, God.
Yeah, in a very unhealthy way. And just
we've radicalized you.
You really have, and that's why it's weird hanging out with your human bodies, because you just exist as these weird thought generators, and just
it can be hard to switch off sometimes.
Yeah, it must be. Is it like? Do you find yourselves? You kind of did it with me instantly, Andy, early on, and I wasn't able to match your think tank level. But like, is that something that happens regularly, where you're like, you take things to their natural absurd conclusion?
You got to remember that, like, your wife or whoever is already sick of your shit, so it doesn't. Like, you got to remember to just like, oh, that's right. We're just having a conversation in our relationship. This isn't a riff. Shut it down.
Yeah, and so that's why we kind of just have that outlet with each other. it kind of is just. I think the reason why we wanted to do the podcast was just because our regular talking was kind of that. It just every time sort of felt fun and kind of like a like a bit of a journey like that. So we're like, oh, we may as well just like start writing these down so that we can make stuff at some point, and then and also record it so that if there's any value in this, then we can people might listen. But we really didn't think anybody would listen, but it's been nice that
they're listening, and it's fun. And what's exciting is it exists forever. It'll always be there. You don't know what is going to happen to it as a sort of thought generator. The think tank is there, and it's a resource, and people should check it out because it's a lot of fun. You did 100 sketch ideas for 100 episodes, 200, which was an all-day event for 200. Do you have plans for your 300th episode? Are you going to revisit this crazy format?
I think if we do 300 sketches, that might have to be the last episode of the podcast.
Oh, I don't think
because no, but it's just so many sketches out.
Yeah. But I think the idea
that's over a year's worth of sketch ideas in a day.
You got to start making some more eventually. Yeah, you got to start putting some on their feet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to hear it. Whatever it is, even if it's just a couple sketch ideas. I'll have fun listening to 300 as I've had fun in the past. Guys, it's the last 5 minutes of the podcast, which means no one is listening. They're done with their jog or making their meal or whatever it is they're doing. No one is here. It's just the three of us, which means it's time for Go Ahead, No One is Listening, where we each use this time now privately to vent about something maybe going on in our lives, share a secret, or tell off a former boss. And I will go first with Go Ahead, No One is Listening. And I'm going to use this week to discuss Dave. My neighbor Dave came over the other day and was chatting with me on the stoop, just about children and, the state of the world and everything that's going on. Parking. We discuss parking a lot. It's kind of a situation out front here in New York. And at the end of the conversation, Dave goes, "Oh, by the way, I had it." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, had the big C, had COVID." Okay, see ya. And I just thought, what? Way to bury the lead, Dave. You gotta. I know that you think that you're indestructible. Now we don't know. We know so little still about this thing. I would have gone outside had he led with that. I'd have stayed a wide berth. But these.
Yeah. Did you find yourself stepping back a couple of steps as soon as he mentioned it?
No, I did. I think I was like, but you're not, but it's not contagious anymore. Like the doctors, I think I was like, "Oh, but the doctors cleared you," or something like that. And he was like, "Yeah, I think so. I don't know." What? You can't get out of here. Get out of here with that. Go in your home.
Oh, Dave.
Yeah, I think that enough time had passed, though. He seemed to think he was fine. It was probably 10 days. He's a smart guy, and
how it spreads.
He's not. Fortunately, he's not listening, and no one else is.
He's not alive anymore. Fortunately,
probably. Yeah.
Look, I guess we had planned a little thing, but I guess I should admit at this point that I have on one occasion stolen from my employer.
Your current
no,
employer?
Not my current employer, but a former employer.
Someone who was employing you.
Yeah, who was employing me, and I'd found a real sneaky way to sneak a wine bottle out. How'd
you do it?
Actually, this one point I was running the tasting table. Yeah. In the wine section, and I realized that they pour out the expensive wine that they have people taste at the end of the day. So what I did is I got a grape colored drink, and then I poured that out. And then when I had a moment alone, I poured the expensive wine into that grape drink bottle.
Notes of tannins, red pepper, is that blue Gatorade?
Yeah.
Stone grass.
I'll share that. Been working from home a lot. Obviously, recently doing writing in my room, while my lovely wife Carly looks after our many children. and very often they can get quite loud and screaming, and very often I'll come out and help. Sometimes I don't come out and help, and sometimes that's because I'm working very hard, but also sometimes it's just because I'm scrolling on Twitter and not working at all.
You're hiding.
And I'm hiding.
She's not going to listen. No one's listening. You're fine. Don't worry about it. I think that's
Look,
fine.
you've guaranteed that to me.
No one. I haven't listened to the last 5 minutes of any of the think tank. I don't think anyone has. I have no idea how you say goodbye or any of that. So, have you ever listened to the end of a podcast once?
No, even the ones we're making, my brain tunes out before the end.
Yeah. So you're fine in there. I think you're fine in there. And
I'm not listening now.
I'm sure she has her version of hiding. I'm sure she takes her moments too. Yeah.
My wife has said that she loves walking into the pantry and finding me just standing in there on my phone.
Yeah.
So apparently that's just a thing I do a lot. I hide away in the pantry and I'm just
Mine
looking
is,
at my phone.
it's all toilet time. It's all toilet time.
Yeah.
If I come out under 10 minutes, she's concerned. Like, what? That was a quick one. What was that? Are you all right? I'm just in there forever on the phone.
We don't have a lock on the door in the toilet, and the kids just come straight in now. That's a permeable membrane. Yeah, they're getting straight through there.
Well, that's a good place to end on permeable membrane. Thank you, gentlemen, once again for doing this. I know there was a time thing where it's 7 a.m. here and 9 there, and I know this was tough to make work, but it was a real pleasure diving into your pod and getting to chat with you, gents.
Thank you very much.
You've been spotted. That's something I do.
Yeah, that's real nice.
I still don't know how to end it. Know how to end it. Maybe you can help me. Can you help me end the show?
That's just like Arnold Schwarzenegger's like, "You've just been erased."
Yeah.
Like that movie, they needed a catchphrase, and I like that. I really like "You've been spotted." I know, you didn't feel like your whole heart was in it, but I
didn't feel it. No,
I felt like, I was like, "Oh, I've been spotted." That felt nice,
Oh, you liked it? Okay, that's good. Okay. All right, maybe I'll keep trying it. Maybe with a little more vigor. Please come back and talk to us after 300, whatever that is. And
sure.
It was a pleasure again talking to you boys. Thanks so much.
Zack,
and everybody,
so
where can we hear you? Where can they download and listen? On all platforms?
You told us they weren't listening now.
Now they tuned back in.
Oh,
okay.
They came back just for the shit.
Yeah,
here.
you can find us absolutely anywhere. In fact, we recommend Spotify because some people have trouble downloading the long episodes from the inferior servers that you'll find elsewhere. Spotify can handle the full mass of episode 200. But you can find us everywhere, and we're on Acast, so you can find us there as well.
Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. This has been the Pod Spotter, the place that showcases the pods you need to add to your library. If you have one that you think that we should feature here on the show, let us know via thepodspotter.com or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram at the Pod Spotter. Thanks, y'all. This has been Zack Robodos. The Pod Spotter is created by the Price Brothers, produced by Oink Inc. Radio, associate producer Tori Adams, and is recorded and produced at Baker Sound in Philadelphia.